Right, the Rugby World Cup. Oh, that was another interesting weekend. So, without further ado, I'm just going to get straight into it. New Zealand versus South Africa. Now, this is a rather interesting weekend as we saw New Zealand versus South Africa in men's and women's rugby in the same weekend, because of course they also played each other in the rugby championship. But enough about that. And let's focus on the women's game. Now, for me, I saw the score at 10 all, and I thought to myself, okay, either one or two things are going to happen here. Either South Africa shock everyone by defeating New Zealand, or New Zealand go and score 40 odd in the second half. And what happened was the latter. Now, going into the break at 10 all, everyone was like, oh, can South Africa do it? Can South Africa actually do this? But for me, I was thinking to myself, yeah, I've been watching sport for way too long to know what's going to happen. And lo and behold, New Zealand did go and score 40 odd in the second half. And for me, I thought to myself, right, yeah, I know why that's happened. And South Africa for me, they got way too excited. And this is what happens whenever a bigger side meets a smaller side. The smaller side, like, may like score 1 or 2 points, but what happens is the bigger side ends up winning like all the time, because the small side, for me, they just get too excited. Like, they think they've reached like some sort of high, and then when they do reach that high, they lack a certain emotional intelligence to close out the game. And that's exactly what happened here between New Zealand and South Africa. Like, New Zealand showed their professionalism, something South Africa lack. But I hope for South Africa going into future tournaments, that's something they can learn from. Like, having the emotional intelligence to deny bigger sides. I mean, yes, of course they're physical, but where they need to improve on it is the mental side of the game, like, and how to, like, basically learning how to live up to a certain standard, not expectation, but rather a standard. So, what are your thoughts on New Zealand versus South Africa, and do you think that game can become a rivalry in the women's game? I'd like to know what you think. On to Canada versus Australia. Look, I watched that game, and being brutally honest, I didn't enjoy it at all. And the reason being was that I went into that game with relatively low expectation, because I knew Canada were going to win that game. But for me, I just didn't enjoy it. Like, for me, the game was overdone within the first half. Like, yeah, Australia tried their best, but Canada showed why they are where they are in that tournament. Like, yeah, I expected Canada to beat Australia, and they did. I mean, of course, Australia had flashes of brilliance, but ultimately, Canada were just the better side in every department. And another thing I'd like to talk about is Canada's gamesmanship. Now, I saw them kicking at the post, and I thought to myself, yeah, they were taking up so much time when they were kicking at the posts, like, and that really got me thinking, like, have Canada found a loophole where World Rugby will have to look into? Because for me, I think that 30-second thing, that's a bit too long. It should be between 20 to 25 seconds, because then that will force the kicker into having less time. Like, of course, Canada winding down the clock when kicking at the posts, it is allowed, but at some point you've got to think to yourself, okay, what's going on here? Why is it taking so long for Canada to kick at the posts? But but overall, yeah, I just didn't enjoy that game. But yeah, that's it. That's it. I'm not going to say any more about that. So over to you. What are your thoughts on Canada versus Australia? Do you think that the game itself was good? Was it not so good? I'd like to know what you think. So, in the last video, I said this. What the Puritans wouldn't want is a semi-final of New Zealand versus Canada and England versus France, because nobody wants that. And yet, this happened. But nevertheless, let's get into it. Now, the first game of the weekend I watched was France v Ireland, albeit I did only watch the second half, as I was following the score from the first half. I saw that Ireland were 13-0 up, and I thought to myself, something special could happen here. But also in my mind, I knew that France would eventually get back into the game and ultimately win it, which they did. Like, in the 66th minute, when France reduced the deficit to a 3-point game, I thought to myself, okay, next point here will be crucial. And lo and behold, it was. And in the 7th minute, like towards the end of the game, I was like, okay, who blinks first? Because the game was that tight. Yeah. For me though, the game was ultimately won and lost, where France scored their second try, which I think was in the 67th minute. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Yeah. I think there was one moment at the end of the game where France knocked the ball on, which I thought, hang on, wouldn't that be a scrum to Ireland? But having seen the rules of the game, I saw that, yeah, it wouldn't automatically be a scrum. Yeah, that's me. I'm still learning about rugby. So, yeah. But that was the closest game of the whole quarterfinals. Like, yeah, I did only watch the second half, but that was the most enjoyable game. And in some ways, it's reminded me of the group game between USA and Australia. Because those are the kind of games that we as rugby fans want to watch, not one-sided games. Like, yeah, we like to see loads of tries, but we like to see the close games as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on that game? Right. The other game I watched was England versus Scotland, another Six Nations battle in there. Now, before watching the game, I was looking at previous results between England and Scotland, and one thing I found interesting was that Scotland hadn't beaten England since the late 90s. And for me, that just goes to show how much England have grown over the years. Like, contests between sides used to be close, but as England improved, contest between sides looks rather one-sided, and that's the case to this day. So, yeah, Scotland have got to improve massively over the next few years, because to close that gap between them and England, it's going to take some doing. For me, that game was rather interesting, as as the conditions made for like a really rough game. Like it was like very wet out there. Like, and for me, it would have been a better game if the conditions were dry. But it is what it is, and apparently that's perfect rugby weather. But but anyway, what were your thoughts on the conditions out there? Moving on, I think England's handling errors, yeah, they're fortunate to get away with that against Scotland, but against better opposition, they may not get away with that. Um, Also, I think thinking about the end of the game, yeah, Scotland definitely deserved that last try. Like, it's always good to see a team giving everything, even after the game is well beyond them. That's that's something I like to see in games, and yeah, it just goes to show Scotland's fighting spirit in there. Like, yes, the game went away from them like earlier into the game, but they still don't give up, and that's something I like to see. But anyway, those are just some of my thoughts on the game. But what are yours? Like, can Scotland eventually close the gap on England, or will the gap between the sides keep growing to a point where Scotland can no longer reach England? I'd like to know what you think.